Hello everyone, welcome to Grooving and Giving in Early Retirement. Here I am in Slovenia, Bobek, Slovenia at the waterfall Dria. And look at the emerald green waters. This channel is all about living our best life in early retirement, giving back to our communities, and the glue that holds it all together, financial freedom. But in this video, I am talking about the Southern Patagonia Showdown, Argentina versus Chile. Which one to travel to? Keep watching. Vamos. We arrived in Buenos Aires with the goal of spending 110 days for our travels, which included an expedition to Antarctica. That's a different video. Here's the link. After spending a few days in Buenos Aires, we mapped out our next step. Just a sidebar. My travel itinerary was really being planned out because of my husband's professional needs. He is a professional photographer, and two of the areas he focuses on are travel and wildlife. And the pandemic really disrupted his business like so many other small businesses. So he is in the process of rebuilding his business. And one of the things he was doing was rebuilding his portfolio. And the Southern Hemisphere was definitely a part of that strategy. Sometimes the decisions just get made for you, and that's not a bad thing. So if you are looking for any photos or you are looking for a photographer, check out his videos. He's got a whole playlist on South America and quite a lot on Patagonia itself. And if you're interested in his services, please contact him. Okay, back to Southern Patagonia Showdown, Argentina versus Chile. After spending a few days in Buenos Aires, we flew to El Calafate. The goal was for John to photograph the Perito Moreno Glacier up close and personal. And the one way we found we could do that was to do the mini trekking tour of Perito Moreno Glacier. Quick tip, if you want to do this tour, make sure you book in advance because the tour generally includes the transportation and the tour of the glacier. And the transportation fills up quickly. If you find yourself in a spot where the transportation's all filled up, consider renting a car, which can be a reasonable way to visit not only the glacier, but places around El Calafate. That's what we did. And it is cheaper than taking a taxi out to the glacier and back into town. This glacier is magnificent. It is enormous. It is massive, massive, massive. And being up close to this glacier is amazing. The trekking tour includes you having to wear crampons and go up and down, ascending and descending into the various areas of the glacier. And so you definitely need to be prepared for this. We got bad weather doing this, and yet the tour was absolutely spectacular. And at the end of the tour, there is this surprise. Sorry, I've ruined it for you. Perito Moreno Glacier is part of the Southern Patagonia ice field. And Perito Moreno Glacier was one of the ones that was growing, but that is no longer the case. It is now in an irreversible retreat. It is really still an amazing glacier, though. It is just breathtaking. After the tour was over, we spent about 6 hours from all the different viewing platforms, which are, by the way, pretty easy to walk on. And John was photographing from all different angles. In fact, he has a whole video on the photography at Perito Moreno Glacier. We'll also put a link to that. In addition to seeing Perito Moreno Glacier, we also explored El Calafate, estancias, the campos, the amazing, gorgeous scenery that you're going to find all over Patagonia. Next, we headed to El Chaltén. The purpose of El Chaltén was the Laguna de los Tres hike for the photography of the 3 peaks up there, and of course the other landscapes. There are plenty of hikes from El Chaltén itself. El Chaltén reminds me of a pop-up town. It's small, but it's quaint and charming, and it has all the things you need. It has several grocery stores. It has a laundromat, so you don't need to carry your groceries from El Calafate. Now, we stayed close to the trailhead, which begins at the end of Avenida San Martín, which the trailhead is on the opposite side of where you come into town. So just keep that in mind because it's easier to get up and go the day you're about to do your hike.
On a Thursday morning, we set out to start our hike on Lagunas de los Tres. The first hour of the trail is a bit dusty, a bit crowded because people are all excited, and it ascends steeply. In fact, the first 30 minutes is definitely just ascending all the way. 30 minutes into your hike, you will get your first view of De las Vueltas River. Then you go into shaded areas and you're in the forest for about an hour or so before you get your glimpse of Fitzroy and its majestic glaciers. It's after this time that you start getting a broader view and you start getting open views, I should say. And by the way, on your hike, you do have an option to do side hikes and go to Laguna Capri, but I would suggest you keep going up and then maybe on the way down, you do some of the side hikes. After several hours, you will go through Poncinat Base Camp. It's the most popular campsite in the park. And then you are again in open areas and you're crossing over the river. Side note, we drank the water out of the river, but it does say that you should maybe use some filtration device. Lagunas de los Tres is a strenuous hike. It's 15 and a half miles. It takes about 8 to 9 hours. Probably took us longer because John was stopping and taking photos. So make sure you bring water and snacks and definitely a good pair of shoes because it is a tough hike. And the last 2 kilometers are boulders, stones, and scree. So you want to make sure you're wearing proper shoes. And that last kilometer is definitely ass over elbow over some very sizable boulders. Okay, we're like 30 minutes at reaching to the top and the weather changes like that. I mean, we went from a nice sunny day to really just rain and sleet getting pelted at us. We kept going though. We kept going. We hoped that the weather would improve. And folks, you know, you can control and plan every aspect, but you can't control the weather. So we kept going. We got up there. It was cold and windy and pelting at us. We were like sitting ducks, nowhere to hide. So after a while, we decided that we gotta, you know, it's not gonna happen. We didn't see any of the 3 peaks. It was just a big cloud hanging right over the laguna. So we headed back down. And unfortunately, on the way down, I developed some massive blisters, but you know, that happens. On the way down, we did also do Laguna Capri, which is, again, worth it. Why not? You're already there. It can be done as a separate hike from town, but you're already there, so might as well do it. Okay, next day was our chillax, rest day, whatever you want to call it. But we took some time and we went to the other side of the trailhead for the hike. And the weather was nice and the weather was improving. And my husband tells me this. He would like to do the Laguna de los Tres hike again because the whole purpose of doing the hike was to make photos, and he didn't get any photos of the 3 peaks. So put that in the back pocket until I tell you the next story. By the way, the other side of the trail, as you head out a little bit farther away from the trailhead, it's spectacular scenery, and there is so much to do on the other side. So definitely consider stepping farther out than just the trailhead. I know a lot of people go to El Chaltén just to do the Laguna de los Tres hike, but hey, why not spend another few days? We were there for 5 days. Spend a few days, check out the area. Okay, as we were walking back into town, as luck would have it, I overheard a gentleman talking to somebody else saying there's an easier way to do Laguna de los Tres. I walked up to the gentleman and I said, por favor, dígame. So he tells us that there's another way to do the Laguna de los Tres hike. And up to this point, I hadn't even thought about an alternative. I just thought about the hike from town because it's so easy. You just walk to the trailhead and you get on your hike. I mean, honestly, folks, this was a game changer. You can take transportation from your hotel about 17 kilometers from El Chaltén for about $30. And this will take you to the Sendero Laguna de los Tres at Puente sobre el Río Eléctrico. You trek towards Campo Piedra del Fraile, which is private property, but you're allowed to trek on it, you know, as long as you're behaving properly. Now, the first part of this hike, it's walking along the river, loose rock, but no elevation gain. And then in about 30 minutes, you're walking through the forest, so the Lenga forest, along the Eléctrico River. During the hike, you will come to like a wooden spinny gate where then you enter the protected area of the national park. The hike to Piedra del Fraile then connects you to another hike, Piedra Negra campsite, and then it connects you to the main trail system towards Fitzroy. You come in to that system just before the Poncinot campsite that I talked about. Now, the last 2 kilometers don't change. You still have that ass over elbow boulder climb that you've got to do. So that doesn't change. But the first part of it, like the first several hours, were really not that hard at all. It was pretty steady and so easy to do. This was a game changer. The weather was fantastic and we made it to Laguna de los Tres. Fun fact, the lake is at the base of Fitzroy and it is called Laguna de los Tres because it's from its shores, you get a view of the 3 peaks, Cerro Fitzroy, Poncinot, and Saint Exupéry. So there are the 3 peaks that you get to see. And along the way, you also get views of the glacier Piedra Blancas. So for this hike is absolutely a game changer. That day, which was Saturday, we got amazing views of the peaks, and it was fantastic. This is definitely an easier hike and a game changer. The only downside I'd say is that we took the transportation round trip, and so we had to get back to the starting point, the bridge where the pickup was, and we didn't want to miss our pickup. So keep that in mind. Now, one thing you can do is take the transportation out and trek back into town. So that way it's a win-win situation. So we hiked Laguna de los Tres twice in 3 days. I normally say I'm not a hiker or a sporty person, but I think after this one, I can say, nope, I think I can say that I'm definitely a hiker. After we were done with El Chaltén, we headed back to El Calafate, and then our next stop was Ushuaia. The reason we were going to Ushuaia is that's where we were taking our expedition cruise to Antarctica. That's another video. You definitely want to watch it if you want to go to Antarctica because there's a backdoor way of getting to Antarctica if you have flexibility in your travel schedule. Ushuaia is definitely a city because it has sufficient amount of a population and infrastructure. But to me, it definitely felt like it's a small city. It's got the category of a city, but it kind of felt like a town. Now, if you're there, you definitely want to take time to go to Tierra del Fuego National Park. You buy your shuttle bus tickets in town, and then you show up in the morning on the day that you're going, and then you can get out to the park. You want to get out there in the morning because you want to do Senda Costera or Coastal Path. And you will have a view of the Beagle Channel during your hike. This hike is definitely a photographer's dream because there's so much to see. There's scenery, there's wildlife, there's forests. It is absolutely stunning, stunning. And Ushuaia is the city as El Fin del Mundo, the city at the end of the world. And when you're on this hike, you feel like you're at the end of the world. You're so far south. It is the southernmost city in the world. One other amazing thing that was really kind of touristy and cheesy, but I loved it, was they have a post office in the park, Correo del Fin del Mundo, where you can get your passport stamped for a fee. You can buy a postcard and mail it back to yourself. I think the cost of all of that was around $8 at the time. And you've got a souvenir that you don't need to carry around. And when you get home, you get all the goosebumps of having been on your holiday in Southern Patagonia. Ushuaia is a really nice city, so spend some time walking around, and I would highly suggest that you walk away from the main avenue and go up so you can discover amazing empanada places like Buen Un Lugar or Doña Lupita. Highly recommended to us by our company, our expedition company. So check those out. You can also walk down by the waterfront and check out the murals, particularly the ones about the Malvinas, that Argentina's law claims that the Malvinas Islands are part of Argentina and not the UK. I'm sure you've heard about that. The Falkland Islands, South Georgia, etc. Also along the water, you will see the intentionally run aground ship, St. Christopher. Again, explore. After a mind-blowing expedition from Antarctica, we arrived in Ushuaia, and the next day we took a bus to Punta Arenas. It's a long bus day, but you get on and off the bus for passport control, and also you get on a ferry. So it's not all that bad and makes it easy to cross the border. We spent a day in Punta Arenas only to pick up our car, and here's why. The Chilean side of Patagonia is definitely more involved, and having a car makes it much easier to visit Torres del Paine. We picked up the car in Punta Arenas and we headed to Puerto Natales. We stayed in Puerto Natales because the cost of the hotels was significantly cheaper at Puerto Natales than in the park in Torres del Paine. Almost 2.5 times cheaper per night. So that's something for you to consider. But that also means that if you're staying in Puerto Natales, you want to get up as early as possible and head to Torres del Paine National Park. Now you can get a pass for Torres del Paine National Park. Remember, Argentina, no pass requirements. Here, pass requirements. You need to have a pass to the Torres del Paine National Park. In Argentina, no pass was required for the Los Glaciares National Park. So that's one difference. Also, remember, you could walk right on to the trails in El Chaltén. Here, you really have to go to Torres del Paine National Park to be able to visit the national park. So we stayed in Puerto Natales, and every morning we did the travel back and forth. We also had a friend accompany us on this part of the journey. We met her on our Antarctica expedition cruise, and she did not have a vehicle, so she came with us. Now, if you have heard that it is pretty easy to take a bus from Puerto Natales to Torres del Paine and have a bus inside the park, we did not experience that. And in fact, our friend who was staying in Puerto Natales for the whole time needed to get a bus back to town, and we couldn't find a bus in the park or for her to come back to town. And we're talking public transportation, not a private tour. She ended up hitching a ride back with people. We stayed in the park one night. It was a bit of an expensive alternative, but it certainly made photography for John easier. Particularly, he wanted to photograph the park during the later hours, even at night. So just keep that in mind, that having a vehicle makes a big difference in Torres del Paine. It is a big park with many different areas. We had a 3-day pass, and the first day that we arrived, the rangers told us to go to the farthest part of the park because there was going to be bad weather. And thank goodness for their suggestion, because we were able to see the peaks as we went farther away from the entrance. And it so turned out that we met people later who got stuck in this bad weather doing the W trek, and they said it was just a miserable time because of the weather. Again, the weather can make such a big difference. So we started our viewing of the park from Laguna Azul and Cascada Paine, and we made our way backwards. So we missed some of the bad weather, and we were also able to hike several parts of the park. The park is big. It is gorgeous. You will see all sorts of wildlife, including guanacos, and you really do need 3 days to visit all the miradors, the glaciers, the lagunas, and do all the hiking. It is an exceptional park, and if you have 3 days, highly recommend this. After we were done with the park, we headed back to Punta Arenas to spend a couple of days there. Now, we just checked out the town. Most people who go either to Ushuaia or Punta Arenas will likely end up doing some cruises to go see the wildlife, penguin colonies, and maybe from Ushuaia visit the lighthouse. We chose not to do that for either one because we were going to Antarctica when we were in Ushuaia, and we had just come back from Antarctica. So we had seen quite a lot of penguins and wildlife. So we didn't do that. There's definitely, these are tours that you can do. So folks, that is the Southern Patagonia Showdown. Argentina or Chile? Which one should you visit? Okay, here's how I would boil it down for you. If you have limited time, you don't want to rent a car, and you're really just there to do hikes, particularly Laguna de los Tres and the areas around Fitzroy. Clearly, Southern Patagonia from the Argentinian side is much easier. You don't need a Los Glaciares National Park pass. It's free to do it. You can take the bus right as you land in El Calafate and take the bus to El Chaltén, and you can walk right to the trailhead. You don't even have to take the Rio Electrico route that I said was a game changer. So it's much easier to do the Argentinian side. But if you have time and you're willing to rent a car and you're willing to just take that time, then I would say the Chilean side of Patagonia might be for you. But if you are slow traveling and you've got flexibility in your itinerary, then I say do both sides, because Southern Patagonia is spectacular. And whether you see it from the Argentinian side or the Chilean side, it is going to be so memorable. And you will go back home with extraordinary photographs and videos. I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. This is Grooving and Giving in Early Retirement. I'm Radhika. Adios.